Ever notice how there's always that one person who cancels plans at the last second? The friend who says, I'm exhausted, maybe next time, or suddenly disappears from the group chat completely. Most people assume they're antisocial, but what if they're not avoiding people at all? What if they're protecting their nervous system? Because for some people, the idea of staying home in comfortable clothes feels genuinely better than loud parties, crowded bars, or hours of forced social energy. And psychology may explain why. Some people recharge through stimulation, conversation, movement, noise, constant interaction. Social energy energizes them. But for introverted or highly sensitive people, the same environment slowly drain mental energy instead. Not because they hate people, but because their brain processes stimulation more deeply. And over time, too much input becomes exhausting. Which is why home often feels less like isolation and more like recovery. Psychologists sometimes connect this to optimal arousal theory, the idea that every nervous system has a different ideal level of stimulation. Some people feel alive in chaos. Others feel calmest in quieter environments where their attention isn't constantly being pulled in multiple directions. Neither is wrong. But this goes deeper than introversion alone. For many people, staying home creates something the outside world struggles to provide: predictability. Outside, your brain constantly manages uncertainty, noise, unexpected interaction, social pressure, crowded environments, the subtle performance of always being on. At home, that pressure disappears. You control the lighting, the sound, the pace, the atmosphere, and for emotionally sensitive or overstimulated people, that control can feel psychologically safe. But here's where it gets interesting. Researchers have noticed that people who genuinely enjoy solitude are often highly reflective internally, not necessarily lonely, not necessarily withdrawn, just mentally comfortable without constant external stimulation. Because silence gives the brain room to process things most people continuously distract themselves from. A lot of clarity isn't discovered in noisy environments. It happens alone, late at night, in quiet rooms, during slow routines, in moments where the mind finally has space to wander without interruption. And yet, modern culture rarely celebrates that kind of happiness. The internet constantly promotes the same image of a good life. Always out, always social, always traveling, always visible, always doing something exciting enough to post. And if your life looks quieter than that, it's easy to feel like you're somehow falling behind. But maybe your nervous system simply values peace more than stimulation. Maybe your ideal life was never supposed to feel loud. Of course, there's another side to this too. Sometimes staying home has nothing to do with peace. Sometimes it comes from anxiety, burnout, depression, emotional exhaustion, fear of judgment, and that distinction matters. Because solitude and avoidance can look identical from the outside, while feeling completely different internally. One feels restorative, the other feels emotionally heavy. And many people confuse the two. But for people who truly enjoy being home, they're usually not missing out on life. They simply experience fulfillment differently. They notice smaller details most people rush past: morning coffee rituals, rain against the window, comfort shows, soft lighting, quiet routines that make life feel emotionally grounded. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a lower stimulation preference. These people don't constantly need intense external excitement because their inner world already provides enough mental activity. And honestly, that can feel deeply peaceful. So if you're someone who cancels plans without guilt, who genuinely enjoys solo weekends, who rewatches comfort shows instead of chasing constant stimulation, who chooses calm over performance, you're probably not broken. Your nervous system may simply function differently than the world expects, and maybe that's why home feels comforting in a way crowded environments never fully do. Not because you stopped living, but because your version of living was never supposed to sound like noise. So tell me honestly, do you think staying home creates peace, or can comfort sometimes quietly become avoidance?